Welcome back to Legalese 123, where we are covering cases across America. Hello and welcome back to Legalese 123. I'm your host, Missy K. Hope you're having a fabulous Tuesday. So, we last left off with some of the DNA forensic scientists who were testifying how they extracted DNA from the samples taken. And in the end, we learned that the FBI took both Anna and Brian's DNA via a saliva swab back in 2018 when he was first arrested for his fraud charges. Very interesting. So, the court is on a break at lunch, so we zoomed through. But before that, remember, there is an issue with Jim Mutlu. We don't know. We know that Jim Mutlu is a very good friend of Anna and Brian's, mainly Anna. Anna worked with him in the real estate group with him. And he was the last person to see her alive. He was their guest at New Year's Eve. And so he was the last one that was there. So they said during the lunch break, they were going to deal with something. So let's go to court and find out what they're talking about without the jury. So let's see where we're at. Let's bring it up and we're going to go ahead and start.
Bets, but I'm going to hedge my bet on this one because I don't want to be shy a witness when we can still do work.
Well, in light of what you've told me about the schedule, I will be happy to let the jury go at 3:30 today.
Okay.
Oh, early day today.
Okay.
And we are still on the same schedule.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, we are.
All right, well, we'll talk about that again at the end of the day.
Yes, Your Honor.
So what I'll say with regard to that is you're in a better position to evaluate how long a voir dire would take. I don't need the jury in the building while we're doing a voir dire.
Yes.
So I guess it would be my mild preference to just continue on where we are today, talking about DNA, and then tell the jury that they can come back later in the day, tomorrow, instead of a 9 a.m. start. Maybe we'll do a 10 a.m. start for them and do the voir dire of Mr. Mutlu in that time while the jury's on their own time and not on our time. How does that all sound?
That sounds like a very good idea, Your Honor. And I can tell you, I have the keeper of records from Home Goods here just in case. And that would take about 20 minutes if we did end a little early.
All right. And how long, I won't hold you to it, but Mr. Mutlu's voir dire, as I understand it, and frankly, I had to remind myself through the pleadings what exactly it is we were voir diring him on. Now that I have reminded myself of what we're voir diring him on, how long do you anticipate, and I'll go to your brother in a second, but how long do you anticipate it will take you to present that evidence?
I think about 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the outside, Your
All
Honor.
right. I was thinking it was relatively short. More, I was checking to make sure that there wasn't a big disconnect between my expectations and what you're thinking. Do you agree, Attorney Tipton? Do you agree,
Attorney Porges?
I do. All right.
No.
So there's other matters we could handle in the morning tomorrow as well. Be prepared for those, including what I said to you at the side of the bench the other day with regard to the first 2 or 3 pages that I was looking for from you. Do you understand?
We do, Your Honor.
Attorney Tipton? Excellent. All right, we can bring the jury in.
Bring the jury. All right, so I'm just going to pause for a second. Okay, so what are we talking about? They want to question Jim Mutlu before he takes the stand. It's called a voir dire. They're questioning him on some information outside the presence of the jury. They want to know, what does he know? What doesn't he know? And then this can decide whether or not whatever information he's testifying about, whether it comes into the trial or not. Does he have the expertise to say XYZ or doesn't he? And so that is why they want to bring him in without the jury there They can ask him any questions that they want. They seem to say it's only going to take about 10 or 15 minutes just to clarify some things, and then shabamo, you can testify. But what does that mean? So if the jury is there until the judge releases them, right? And so you don't want the jury just sort of hanging out and waiting until you voir dire somebody. And sometimes a voir dire, they say might take 5 or 10 minutes, might take an hour, might take 2 hours, because once you start asking questions, it could devolve or evolve into, I say devolve because it could evolve into something else. And it could be much bigger and much larger than what you anticipate. It's like opening a can of worms, right? That phrase. So you want to do it outside the presence of the jury, meaning the jury is not even in the building, so that the jury, aren't just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. They were doing that this morning. They were twiddling their thumbs. There must have been something going on with the attorneys that they were talking back and forth that was outside of the presence of the jury and at sidebar, and it just takes the time that it does. And it's sad because the jury's just sitting there waiting. So instead of the jury coming in at 9, she's going to have the jury come in at 10 or 11 to give them that room to do the paperwork and get the little nuances done before the trial sets. So let's continue. Apparently we're doing more DNA stuff. Let's go. We are at witness number 40. Who do we have? You are the next contestant in the Brian Walshe trial. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Witness number
Hold them
40.
up for a minute. Not you,
Uh-oh.
them.
Uh-oh.
I just don't
What is
want the Commonwealth not at their desk.
Oh. All right. So we need to hear from
Thank you.
Samina Celine, something like that.
Actually, I don't think that's a thing. I disagree with that. That's the way you should do it.
Commonwealth may call its next witness.
The Commonwealth would call Summon Salim.
Woohoo! Woohoo! This one might be a little bit long because she did all of the stuff. So now she needs to tell us what she found. But we're going to go through training and background and all that stuff first. Look at how she's got all the file folders. Yay!
The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
Right this way. Just watch your step.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury by stating your full name and spelling your name?
My name is Saman Salim, S-A-M-A-N. Last name is S-A-L-E-E-M.
And could you please tell us your educational background?
I have a bachelor's degree from Boston College in biochemistry and a master's of science in forensic science from Boston University.
And what is your occupation, ma'am?
I currently work as a forensic scientist 3 at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab within the DNA unit.
And what is a forensic scientist 3?
A forensic scientist 3 is a supervisory position within the DNA unit, where I manage other analysts, forensic scientists 1 and 2, that work within the DNA unit.
So how many people do you supervise?
I supervise 6 people currently.
And what are your responsibilities in supervising those people?
As a supervisor, I manage their caseload by assigning them cases to work on in the laboratory, as well as for interpretation of DNA profiles for evidence items that are submitted to the DNA unit. I also train them in the methodologies for DNA testing. For example, if there's any new hires in our laboratory, I would be part of their training program where I would teach them about the laboratory work that's conducted, as well as give them presentations on the theoretical background of DNA testing. In addition to that, I also work on my own cases, so where I'm assigned cases by my manager, and I do the interpretation of DNA testing on those cases and review the cases of other people and what they've worked on.
And how long have you been employed at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab?
I've been there approximately 10 years.
Do you have any specialized training to be a DNA analyst?
When I first began at the DNA unit 10 years ago, I went through an 8-month-long training program where I learned about the theoretical discipline of forensic DNA testing, as well as the practical application of it. I tested mock evidence samples in the laboratory to determine what those DNA profiles were and learned about how to do that testing. Additionally, since that training, every year we go through continuing education where we learn about new methodologies that we're adopting in the laboratory and also any kind of changes that are happening in the field of forensic DNA analysis.
So you said that you've had testing, is that correct?
I'm sorry.
Have you had testing?
Yes.
And what kind of testing have you had?
So every time there's a new technology adopted or there's new training that I go through, at the end of that training, we do a competency test where we are tested on if we have understood that methodology by taking a written exam or oral exam, as well as a practical exam in the laboratory. In addition to that, twice a year, we go through proficiency testing.
So have you passed the competency testing that you've taken?
Yes, I have.
And you said that twice a year you have proficiency testing. Who monitors that or provides that proficiency testing?
So the proficiency test samples are provided by an external agency, and those samples are tested in our laboratory as we would process any casework samples as well. And then the answers for those items of evidence, the DNA profiles we obtained, are submitted back to that external agency who will then grade us to ensure that we obtain the correct DNA profiles.
And have you passed that proficiency testing?
Yes, I've passed all the ones I've taken over the 10 years.
Thank you. Are you familiar with lab case 23-00596?
Yes, I am.
And what type of DNA testing was conducted in this case?
In this case, we conducted a type of testing known as STR DNA testing, which follows a 4-step process in the laboratory, at the end of which we obtain a DNA profile.
Okay, so just generally, can you discuss that 4-step process?
Generally, that 4-step process starts with extraction in the first step, where we break open the cells in which the DNA is found. This is similar to like cracking open an egg where the DNA is found within the yolk of it, and we extract that DNA. We use heat and chemicals to do this. The second step is known as quantitation, where we determine how much DNA is present in that sample so that we can proceed with the next step. The next step is known as amplification. In that third step, we make millions and millions of copies of the DNA that is found there, targeting certain locations within the DNA. In this case, we target 26 locations that are found throughout the chromosome, as well as a sex determining locus as well. And then the last step is capillary electrophoresis. During that step, we analyze those copies of DNA to generate a DNA profile, which can then be interpreted for comparison purposes.
And then once the raw data is generated, you said that you're able to make some comparison here?
Yes.
And how is that done generally?
So generally, the first thing we would do is interpret the DNA profile, which means that we would observe that DNA profile to see what is in that DNA profile. So what are the different characteristics of the DNA that we're observing at these 26 locations that we have tested. We will determine how many individuals are in this mixture. So the number of people that make up this DNA profile, is it coming from one person or multiple individuals? And then that profile, once we've determined what it is, we can compare it to a known standard or somebody whose DNA profile we know to see if they would be included in that sample or excluded from it.
And in this case, 23-00596, there were many items that were tested by multiple people in the lab for DNA testing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And all of those people did the 4-step process. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what was your role here?
At the end of that four-step process, data is generated on a computer. At the end of that process, my role comes in at that point where I look at that data. So it comes off in a form that we have to interpret using a software program. So that's where my role starts, where I interpret that data.
So I'm now going to start to ask you about what you did here and about each individual piece of data that you looked at with each individual item that you looked at. Is that okay?
That's okay.
So let's start with the first round of testing and the first items that you looked at. I want to ask you about item 9-27.2.1. What is that item, ma'am?
Do you mind if I look at my notes?
You may look at your notes.
Thank you. That is a sample of an interior of dark gray slippers found in bag number 4 at 300 Forest Street.
And what was the DNA profile result for this item?
This DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA.
And were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walshe?
Yes, the DNA profile from this item is at least 270 million times more likely if it originated from Anna Walshe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion of Anna Walshe to this profile.
So what does that mean?
So the statistic we report is known as a likelihood ratio. The first part of this is determining what the DNA profile is. In this case, the DNA profile is a mixture of 3 contributors, meaning that the profile that was observed on this item came from 3 individuals. In this profile, when we do a comparison, we compare the characteristics at each of these 26 locations to see if the profile that is on Anna Walshe's profile matches those or is consistent with the ones that are observed in the DNA profile. And through the statistical analysis, what we learned is that it is at least 270 million times more likely to observe this DNA profile if it originated from Anna Walshe than if it did not, and 2 other individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown unrelated individuals. The likelihood ratio is a statistical calculation that shows us how likely it is to observe a DNA profile given two propositions. One, that the person would be included in the DNA profile, or the other, that the person is excluded or not included in the DNA profile. And the value of that likelihood ratio can tell us which of these propositions is more likely to observe this DNA profile given either of these propositions.
So how do you calculate the likelihood ratio?
That is calculated using a software known as STRmix or StarMix. And in that software, we use calculations that we derive from the general population of how common or rare certain characteristics are at these 26 locations observed. And we use that in the general population in the US, and we use that information to calculate the likelihood ratio.
Can you explain when you said this was a mixture of 3 contributors?
So that just means that the DNA profile that we observed at these 26 locations, what I observed is that I would see DNA from multiple people, in this case, 3 individuals. We receive half our DNA from our mother and half from our father. So we would expect to see for a single source profile or something coming from one person would either have one characteristic or 2 characteristics at each of these locations. In some of these locations, I saw 5 or 6 characteristics, which means that there's at least 3 people here in this mixture.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walshe?
Yes, the DNA profile from this item is at least 12 quintillion times more likely if it originated from Brian Walshe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown unrelated individuals. And this provides support for an inclusion.
What is a quintillion?
Quintillion is 1 followed by 18 zeros.
Can you tell when the DNA was contributed?
I cannot, to the testing that we do, we cannot determine when or how the DNA was deposited on an evidence item.
Does DNA have to be contributed at the same time?
No, it does not.
Moving to item 9-27.3.
Okay. So they found Anna's DNA, they found Brian's DNA, but there's a third contributor. Who's that? Now, they didn't test the kids, so we're going to go through this and then we're going to see what the defense has to say because remember it's the defense's job to poke holes in all of this. So he's going to have some really good questions for her. Let's go. Let's continue.
3.1. Can you tell me what that item is?
That was a sample from stain A on the exterior top left of the gray slipper, bag number 4 at 304 Street.
And can you tell me what's the DNA profile result for this item?
This DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 2 contributors, including male DNA.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walshe?
Yes. The DNA profile from this item is at least 16 nonillion times more likely if it originated from Anna Walshe and an unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown unrelated individuals, and this provides support for an inclusion of Anna Walshe to this profile.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walshe?
The DNA profile from this item is at least 77 times more likely if it originated from Brian Walshe and an unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown individuals, unknown unrelated individuals. This provides limited support for an inclusion. Our DNA unit validation studies have shown that there is an inclusion of non-contributors in this range, likelihood ratio range of about 2 to 1,000. And adventitious support could be attributed to this conclusion.
So what does that mean?
So when we do these calculations for the likelihood ratio, we're relying on the DNA profile that we observed in that evidence item. The more data we have there, that means the more of these 26 locations where we observe this DNA profile, the higher the statistic will be for an inclusion. And that's because there's more support and more data observed. When there is limited support for an inclusion, it means that the data for that contributor in that mixture, so it doesn't mean everyone in that mixture had less DNA, just that one contributor, one or more contributors had less DNA available there for comparison, so the statistic is lower because of it. In our validation studies, what we did see, because all humans do share some DNA with each other, that we would see some non-contributors, meaning that people who really shouldn't, we made mixtures where we knew who was in those mixtures. And so we would have some non-contributors get a positive likelihood ratio that's inclusionary, show that they're included when they really shouldn't be included. And it's because they happen to have some alleles that are common with what was observed in the DNA profile. So in this case, for the statistic, even though there is support for an inclusion, that support is limited, meaning that there is less data available.
What is an anillion?
A nonillion is 1 followed by 30 zeros.
What type of cells is DNA found in?
It is found in all kinds of biological cells that we have, such as our blood cells, which are our white blood cells, our hair cells, skin cells, saliva, anything we could have in our body that has a nucleus. Any cell that has a nucleus would have DNA in it.
And what of those is potentially found in a shoe?
From a shoe, it could be if there's a biological process that's deposited on there, that biological fluid could contribute DNA, or more typically for clothing and shoes, it would be from skin cells that are from wearing that shoe multiple times.
Do your results tell you what type of cells these came from?
No, they do not.
And do the individuals have to contribute the same type of cells?
No, they do not. One of the things that could cause a mixture of DNA profiles is if there's different types of cells from different individuals that are contributing to the same evidence item.
What is item 9-32.1.1?
That is a sample of an interior sleeve cuff of a Tyvek suit that was found in bag number 6 at 300 Forest Street.
And what was the DNA profile result for this item?
The DNA profile for this item was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walshe?
The DNA profile from this item is at least 4.8 nonillion times more likely if it originated from Anna Walshe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown unrelated individuals, and this provides support for an inclusion.
And were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walshe?
Yes, the DNA profile from this item is at least 100 trillion times more likely if it originated from Brian Walshe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown unrelated individuals, and this provides support for an inclusion.
So when you say things like this provides support for an inclusion, is that standard language that you're using?
Yes.
And standard
Yes.
language for whom?
The standard language for forensic DNA analysis in general, and then at our laboratory, we've adopted this language as part of it. Many laboratories would use very similar language.
It's hard
What
to
is
explain.
item 9-32.2.1?
Sample from stain A of the exterior left pant leg of the Tyvek suit from bag number 6 at 300 Forest Street.
And is this the same Tyvek suit that we just discussed previously in 9-32.1.1?
Yes.
And what was the DNA profile result for this item?
For this item, there was the DNA profile was a female DNA profile originating from a single contributor.
And were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walshe?
Yes, the DNA profile is at least 30 nonillion times more likely if it originated from Anna Walshe than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual, and this provides support for an inclusion.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walshe?
Brian Walshe is excluded from this single source female DNA profile.
What does that mean?
So the single source DNA profile is probably the easiest ones for us to do a comparison because we should be able to see if the single source profile we have from the evidence matches the one profile we have from our known standard or the reference we have. So when I say somebody's excluded, it means that the 2 profiles don't match each other.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's go back to item number 3. It was the interior Tyvek sleeve. So we're talking like the inside. So that's interesting that Anna was present Brian obviously should be present. Plus, I just also have to tell you that the Tyvek suit wasn't bought until later the night of January 1st. So put that together. So outside of the Tyvek suit, the stain was just Anna, no Brian. So we'll see how this goes. Let's continue.
What is item 9-32.5.1?
And that is a sample from stain D on the interior right sleeve of the Tyvek suit.
And is
Interior
this the same Tyvek suit as discussed
Sleeve.
with items 3 and 4 that we previously discussed?
Yes.
But is this a different stain?
Yes.
And what was the DNA profile result for this item?
The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 2 contributors, including male DNA.
And were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walshe?
The DNA profile from this item is at least 110 sextillion times more likely if it originated from Anna Walshe and an unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown unrelated individuals, and this provides support for an inclusion.
And what is sextillion?
A sextillion is 1 followed by 21 zeros.
I'm sorry,
21 zeros.
thank you. Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walshe?
Yes, the DNA profile from this item is estimated to be 6 times more likely if it originated from 2 unrelated individuals than if it originated from Brian Walshe and an unknown individual. This provides limited support for an exclusion. Similar to before, the MSPCL DNA unit validation studies have shown that exclusions for the inverse likelihood ratio range of 2 to 1,000 have shown known contributors could be excluded, and adventitious support could be attributed to this conclusion.
So what is limited support for exclusion?
So it's very similar to the inclusion one I described in our validation studies. We also looked at profiles where since we knew who those mixtures were made of, those individuals, we would compare this to those individuals. And when there's limited data available, again, for comparison for one or more of the contributors in a mixture profile, the statistic would be lower, but it's on the exclusion side. And when it is a lower statistic on the exclusion side, we would like to report it as a number, just so we can be clear that there's a possibility that somebody who is truly meant to be in this mixture would be actually excluded from it because of there being limited data for support. So in this case, there is support for an exclusion, but there is only 6 times more likely for that support. The likelihood ratio is in that range of 2 to 1,000 again.
What
Just
is
say
item
excluded.
16-13.1?
This was an unknown tissue that recovered from the Swampscott dumpster.
And what was the DNA profile result for this item?
This was a female DNA profile originating from a single contributor.
And were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walshe?
The DNA profile from this item is at least 30 nonillion times more likely if it originated from Anna Walshe than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual, and this provides support for an inclusion.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walshe?
Brian Walshe is excluded from this DNA profile.
Unknown tissues
So I want to
from the
move on now to
Swampscott
the next
dumpster.
round of DNA testing. What is item 5-1.1?
This is a sample from swabs of red-brown stain K on a basement floor in 516 Chief Justice Cushing Highway.
And what was the DNA profile result for this item?
This DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 2 contributors, including male DNA.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walshe?
The DNA profile from this item is at least 15 nonillion times more likely if it originated from Anna Walshe and an unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unrelated individuals. And again, this provides support for inclusion of Anna Walshe to this DNA profile.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walshe?
Brian Walshe is excluded from this DNA profile.
So it's
What is item
Anna's blood in the basement.
7-10.3.1?
This was a sample of stained area C on the blade of a hacksaw, placard number 8, 300 Forest Street.
And what was the DNA profile result for this item?
For this item, a female DNA profile was obtained originating from a single contributor.
Oh,
And were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walshe?
The DNA profile from this item is at least 30 nonillion times more likely if it originated from Anna Walshe than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual. And this provides support for inclusion of Anna Walshe to this DNA profile.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walshe?
Brian Walshe is excluded from this DNA profile.
Yep. Brian, you're. I mean, we already know he did it.
What is item
But this just-
7-10.4.1?
There's
That is
just
a
more nails
sample
in the
of the
coffin.
handle of the hacksaw, placard number 8 at 300 4th Street.
And what was the DNA profile result for this item?
The female DNA profile was obtained originating from a single contributor.
And were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walsh?
The DNA profile from this item is at least 30 nonillion times more likely if it originated from Anna Walsh than from an unknown, unrelated individual. And this provides support that Anna Walsh is included in this DNA profile.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walsh?
Brian Walsh is excluded from this DNA profile.
Mm. By the way, the defense and the prosecution already have these results.
If I may have one moment, Your Honor.
You may.
So they already know. She lost. I'm lost because I can't remember. Oh, there's the towel, there's the hairs, there's the rug. So she got more to
What
go.
is item 9-22.1.1?
That is sample from stain A on a white towel number 1
See?
with red-brown stains on it that was found in bag number 2 at 300 4th Street.
And what was the DNA profile result for this item?
There was a female DNA profile observed originating from a single contributor.
And were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walsh?
The DNA profile from this item is at least 30 nonillion times more likely if it originated from Anna Walsh than from an unknown, unrelated individual. This provides support for inclusion of Anna Walsh to this DNA profile.
And were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walsh?
Brian Walsh is excluded from this DNA profile.
What is item 9-28.1.1?
This was a sample of stained area A on apparent hairs found in bag number 4 at 300 4th Street.
What was the DNA profile result for this item?
There was a female DNA profile observed on this item originating from a single contributor.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walsh?
The DNA profile is at least 30 nonillion times more likely if it originated from Anna Walsh than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual. This provides support for inclusion of Anna Walsh to this DNA profile.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walsh?
Brian Walsh is excluded from this DNA profile.
What is item 9-31.1?
That is a sample from cutting of red-brown stain on a piece of rug from bag number 5 at 300 4th Street.
And what was the DNA profile result for this item?
There was a female DNA profile observed originating from a single contributor.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walsh?
The DNA profile from this item is at least 30 nonillion times more likely if it originated from Anna Walsh than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual. This provides support for inclusion of Anna Walsh to this DNA profile.
And were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walsh?
Brian Walsh is excluded from this DNA profile.
Moving on.
Brian, you're a naughty, 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 naughty
to the
man.
Third round of DNA testing. What is item 7-13.1?
It is a sample from area A on the head of a hatchet, placard number 8 at 300 4th Street.
And what was the DNA profile result from this item?
There was a female DNA profile observed originating from a single contributor.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walsh?
The DNA profile from this item is at least 33 nonillion times more likely if it originated from Anna Walsh than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual, and this provides support for an inclusion of Anna Walsh to this DNA profile.
Were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walsh?
Brian Walsh is excluded from this DNA profile.
What is item 7-13.2.1?
That is the sample from the handle of the hatchet, placard number 8 at 300 Forest Street.
And what was the DNA profile result for this item?
The DNA profile from this item was interpreted as a mixture of 2 contributors. Due to limited information available, contributor 2 was deemed not suitable for comparison purposes.
So were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walsh?
Yes, the DNA profile from this item is at least 2.6 octillion times more likely if it originated from Anna Walsh and an unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unrelated individuals, and this provides support for an inclusion of Anna Walsh to this profile.
And what does it mean due to limited information, contributor 2 is not suitable for comparison?
It just means that in this mixture DNA profile, the data that is observed for one of these 2 contributors is so low level that we would not be able to make a comparison to any known reference standards. So we test 26 locations. We require in our DNA processing that data must be observed at a minimum of 3 locations for us to be able to do any comparisons to it. In this case, data was observed at less than 3 locations for this second contributor.
And what is an octillion?
An octillion is 1 followed by 27 zeros.
And you said that you were able to provide support for Anna Walsh, but were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walsh?
Brian Walsh is excluded from the first contributor that's suitable for comparison in this DNA profile.
So what does that mean?
So since it's a mixture of 2 contributors and I can only compare one of the 2, that one contributor, the DNA profile shows that it's the likelihood ratio shows support for inclusion of Anna Walsh to this profile, but Brian Walsh is excluded from that suitable for comparison first contributor in this profile.
What was item 9-20.1?
That was sample from stain A on tape with apparent gauze with red-brown stains on it, found in bag number 2 at 300 Forest Street.
And what was the DNA profile result for this item?
There was a male DNA profile obtained on this item originating from a single contributor.
And were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Anna Walsh?
Anna Walsh was excluded from this DNA profile.
And were you able to come to a conclusion about the comparison to the known profile of Brian Walsh?
The DNA profile is at least 23 octillion times more likely if it originated from Brian Walsh than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual, and this provides support that Brian Walsh is included as a contributor to this DNA profile.
And what is an octillion?
An octillion is 1 followed by 27 zeros.
I might have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is everything that they sent to the lab, 15 items. And most of them contain Anna's DNA. And so where I think things are going, and like you can say, well, that's all Anna's DNA. I'm not in, that's not mine. Well, if your gauze with your bloody gauze is in there, that's contributing into this. So you have blood, she has blood. And then there were a couple of them that Brian Walsh was included. The Tyvek suit is the big one, right? That has both of their DNA on the Tyvek suit. That definitely is like a ding, 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 ding. And then the slippers, both their DNA is on the slippers. So, take with what you will, but it's obvious that something happened to Anna, and these items found in the trash have her DNA on them. So let's see what they go next.
Cross.
Okay, here we are, cross. Gonna get into some technical stuff here. Mr. Tipton's really good at this. Hope she's ready.
I think you said it in your, in some of your answers in regards to the first round of testing that you testified to. And was that testing, was the report issued on January 13th of 2023?
Yes, that's correct.
And in the context of some of your answers to the testing results that you told this jury about, for instance, sample 9-27.2.1 at paragraph 1 on page 2, you indicate that it was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors.
That's correct.
Now, as you were explaining that and some of the other conclusions and the results of testing, you used the phrase at least 3 people, correct?
That's correct.
So when you write this report and you include the phrase, the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, it's more accurate to say the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of at least 3 contributors?
No, when we are doing our testing, we are using the information that we have in our profile. And in order to do any comparison analysis or further any kind of interpretation on it, we have to determine the number of contributors. So in this case, the data that I observed showed that there was 3 individuals in this. There could be more, but it's not in the data that I observed.
There could be more, though.
Yes, obviously the instrumentation we use, there could be contributors that are there that are not detected, but the ones that I observed, the profile showed a mixture of 3 contributors, which is how I interpreted this profile.
And when you interpret the number of mixtures, like you've just explained to the jury, am I right in saying that since we each inherit 1 allele from our father at a particular locus and 1 allele from our mother, then we typically have 2 different alleles at that one particular locus? Is that fair to say?
We could have 1 or 2 alleles at a locus, depends on if you inherit the same characteristic from both the mother and the father, or you inherit 2 different characteristics from the mother and the father.
And when you inherit the same allele, your father gives you the same allele as your mother, that would be a homozygote. That would be another way to frame that.
That's correct. That's a scientific term for that.
As opposed to 2 different alleles, your mother gave you 1 allele, your father gave you a different allele, then you'd be considered a heterozygote at that locus.
That's correct.
So what you're doing is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, what you're doing is you're looking at all the alleles that you have in front of you on a particular sample, and you're trying to determine how many, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong, you're trying to determine how many peaks you have at a particular locus. And for instance, if you had, for instance, 2 heterozygotes combined in a 2-part mixture, you would probably expect to see 4 different alleles there.
If we were looking at a mixture of 2 contributors, we would expect to see up 3 or 4 characteristics at the location. When we are looking at the DNA profile, he mentioned the word peaks. They kind of look like an EKG. If you can imagine like peaks and valleys on an EKG, that's what our data looks like. And so when we're looking at that, we are trying to just not only look at how many of those peaks are present, but what the level of each of those peaks is, because that can also tell us if it's coming from different individuals. So you would expect that if the same individual is contributing DNA to it at all of these 26 locations, they would contribute similar amounts of DNA at all the 26 locations. And so if we see some high peaks in one location and low peaks in a different one, that could also tell us that there is a mixture present as well. So not only looking at the number of peaks that are present, but also the level of these peaks.
And so there are some assumptions being made about the way you interpret the data.
The assumptions we're making is based in science that we inherit half our DNA from our mother and half from our DNA from our father. So we expect to see one or two alleles or peaks at each of these locations. So we're using that information to then assess the profile to see how many contributors are in this profile.
And without complicating this too much, and I don't intend to do that, but there is observed in DNA testing data, not just at a particular allele, one allele if it's a homozygote or two alleles if it's a heterozygote, but there's actually times when there's a triallelic allele, all right?
That's correct.
And so that's all I meant about the assumptions. And I understand they're scientifically based, but there are assumptions being made, correct?
Right. So if there is something like a triallelic pattern, there is a pattern to them, and we do know what those patterns look like. And what triallelic is that during the process, during the cell formation that happens, there's a mutation that occurs in the DNA that causes an extra copy to be present, either of either the allele from your mother, or the allele from your father, or a form of that allele. And that would cause, instead of seeing one or two peaks, we would see 3 peaks present for that person. But those usually have a pattern to them. And we can look at that, especially in single source profiles, and determine that. I did not observe any such things in the profiles that I saw in this testing that we did.
It's very clear, isn't it, that you have in a lot of these samples, if not most of these samples, you have concluded that a profile that was associated with Anna Walshe from a known sample, you could see the same profile in many of these samples, correct?
For any of the ones that were single source contributors, meaning there's only one person, that's where I can make that exact matching from the reference.
And then the ones that are mixtures?
The ones that are mixtures, those we would have to compare the whole profile as a whole. So it wouldn't always just be a matching of the 2 different peaks that we see. It would be a matching of looking at that plus the information we have on the levels of that contribution to see how likely it is to observe that profile if they were included in this mixture versus not included in this mixture.
Thank you. We appreciate your very clear answers. And what I would like to ask you now is something that you said early on direct examination. Your DNA testing and your results that you're reporting to this jury, it does not inform you of how a particular biological substance or a nuclear cell that resulted in the DNA profile, how it was deposited on that particular object that appears here in the reports, correct?
That's correct. We cannot determine how the DNA was deposited.
And if I were to tell you and suggest to you that for many of these items that were tested, if they were found combined with other items in a bag, and those other items came into contact with each other, you would agree with me that you can't tell this jury if the biological substance that was tested on one object might not have been transferred simply from another object that it came into contact with in that bag, correct?
Overruled.
That's correct. It could be transferred from one item to another item in a bag.
And would that transfer, that word you just used, would that transfer also occur if 2 items or more were placed in a single bag, and then that bag was actually compressed by a compactor that compressed that bag very tightly to reduce its size? Would it be even more likely that there would be a, quote, transfer between those 2 objects of biological material?
Objection to the hypotheticals? Rephrase your question.
Would transfer be more likely if two or more objects were placed in a bag, placed after that into a compactor, and compressed together where the items within that bag were compressed together?
Objection, same question.
Same result.
If two items come into contact with each other, there's a possibility of transfer of biological material on those two items, correct?
That's correct.
And does the possibility of transfer between two items, would it increase if those items are pressed together tightly for a period of time?
I'm not sure if the chances would increase or decrease if they're pressed together, but if two items were to come in contact with each other, there would be a likely transfer of DNA.
So based on all of your conclusions based on all of your observations of the data and the results here, once again, you can't say how any of the biological material was deposited on any of these items, correct?
That's correct.
And you cannot tell the jury, and it's the limitation of the DNA testing, you can't tell when it was deposited, correct?
That's correct.
And for instance, if there is a particular object like a tool, let's say a hatchet, you cannot tell from your DNA testing if that hatchet actually ever came into contact with the biological material.
Objection.
I didn't finish, but maybe I'll start over again. Let me start over again. The DNA testing on a particular object does not tell you that that object was ever used against a person whose DNA profile appears on that object.
Objection.
Sustained.
That's asking her
Well,
to
you
make
have told us
assumptions.
that
She
the
can't make those
biological
assumptions.
substance that was tested does not tell you anything about how that biological substance got on that item, correct?
That's correct. The DNA testing that we do cannot tell us how or when the DNA was deposited on an item.
And I think you told us this on direct, but I just want to make sure I understood it completely. The DNA testing that you conducted here on the biological samples, that can result, the DNA profile can result from any nucleated cell, correct?
That's correct.
And so we heard you refer to skin cells, correct?
That's correct.
And we heard you refer to blood cells, correct?
Yes, except for red blood cells, all other types of blood cells do have nucleuses.
Okay. And so when you are given samples to test, you do not determine in your laboratory, and you can't determine based on your DNA results, whether your DNA results are the result of a profile coming from a skin cell or a blood cell or some other nucleated cell, correct?
That's correct. We would not be able to determine the cell type from which that DNA profile was obtained.
And even though sometimes you might get a sample that's identified as a red-brown stain on an item, especially an item of clothing, even if you got a full profile from that particular stain, you still don't know if the profile you got came from epithelial cells or skin cells versus blood cells, correct?
That's correct. We would not know if it came from any blood cells that were present on that item or skin cells that might have been present on that item as well.
Yeah, but I have issue with if the forensic scientist before said that he tested something, it came positive for blood, then he did a confirmatory test for blood, that wouldn't that say that came from a blood cell? And then you give the sample to the next forensic scientists who go and get the DNA from it. Can't you go backwards from that way?
And
Okay, I just confirmed with an expert that my analysis was correct.
on sample 7-13.2.1, I think that's the sample that you explained to the jury that it was a mixture of two contributors, correct?
That's correct.
And even though you concluded that it was a mixture of two contributors, you said that due to the limited information, the contributor two, and you put in, you actually refer to it as contributors, and you put the S at the end of contributor in parentheses, contributors, two is not suitable for comparison, correct?
So a contributor is it's just one contributor. Contributor two is not suitable. The reason there's a parentheses S there is because we use similar conclusions when we have multiple contributors that may not be suitable for comparison. The wording that we use, like I said, it's from our protocols that is designed to sort of kind of cover all different types of DNA profiles that we can see. So in similar conclusions can be written where we would say contributors 2 and 3 would not be suitable for comparison, which is why there's a parentheses S there. In this case, the only contributor that I'm talking about that is not suitable for comparison is contributor 2.
But that's a good
That's all I
question.
have. Thank you very much.
What's the language? All right. Any redirect?
Nothing, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so that concludes I think that forensic part of the program, people, and that is huge, right? We collected these things from the house. We collected these things from the trash. Who belongs to who? And then you as the jury can make the conclusion that, hey, the blood that was found, sorry, it's blood. The blood that was found on the carpeting matches Anna. What happened to Anna? There's blood on a hatchet that matches Anna. There's blood on a hacksaw that matches Anna. Put 2 and 2 together. That's exactly the way, the process that you're supposed to go. All right, let's see who's up next.
See at the side of the bench.
Oh, she is going to, remember earlier she was like, who are you going to call? Who are you going to call? Or did they let the jury go? They've got, I can't see the timestamp. They have a little ways to go, so let's see. And they said they have the Home Depot dude waiting in the wings.
Would call Michael Roddy.
Okay. I'm assuming this is the Home Depot guy. So more surveillance video. Brian Walsh, would you buy this time? Michael. Well, we know that Mr. Mutlu is going to be tomorrow.
Right this way.
Was Mr. Mutlu supposed to come in today and he didn't?
There you go.
Or did he have a
Good afternoon, sir.
conflict? Did he have a family emergency?
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Sure, it's Michael Roddy, Roddy.
And where do you work, sir?
I work for Home Goods.
And
Home Good.
What do you do for Home Goods?
I'm a district loss prevention manager.
And can you tell
Well,
us
we know
what
he
is
bought a
Home Goods?
rug.
It's the place you go when you want to buy stuff for your home.
Okay. So I take it
Yay,
by buying
that's
stuff for
funny.
your home, it's a retail store.
It is.
Okay. Now, Home Goods, is it part of a larger corporation or umbrella of stores?
It is. It falls under TJX, which also has TJ Maxx, Marshalls, HomeSense, and Sierra.
And how long have you been with Home Goods, sir?
Home Goods itself, 9 years. TJX, 19.
And can you tell us
Wow.
about your responsibilities for Home Goods?
Sure. At the core, it's really protecting the assets of the company and the business.
And so how many, do you have a geographic region that you're responsible for?
I do. I cover 11 locations.
And of those 11 locations, are you familiar with a location in Norwell?
I am.
What location does Home Goods have in Norwell?
It's store number 122 in Norwell. I believe it's on Washington Street, Washington.
And that store in Norwell, are there any other TJX properties in that same plaza?
There's TJ Maxx right next to it. Same plaza.
Now, sir, are you familiar with surveillance videos that were turned over by Home Goods in this matter?
I am.
And have you had the chance to review them prior to coming to court today?
I have.
Have they been altered in any way?
They have not.
Now, sir, Home Goods, does it
plural.
maintain its surveillance videos in good faith?
It does.
And does it do so in the normal course of business?
It does.
And when it's surveillance videos, I take it they're recorded digitally, correct?
They are.
So when they're recorded, they're going to a server?
They do.
And who has access to the server of surveillance videos?
Myself, direct reports of mine, and home office loss prevention.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
All right. When and
Rodman,
where and
You
what
recognize
did
this
you
thumb drive I'm
purchase?
showing you?
I do.
Did you have the opportunity to review the videos from this thumb drive?
I did.
And they have videos from the Norwell Home Goods store for January 2nd and January 4th.
Yes, they do.
January 2nd and January
All of
4th.
this, you can have this drive with the Home Goods surveillance videos.
January 2nd.
Marked as the next exhibit.
Any objection to that? I believe we're at 251. Is that correct, Madam Reporter? That thumb drive will be is now admitted into evidence. The Home Goods Norwell thumb drive.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, with the court's permission, could the Commonwealth publish videos from the drive?
Yes, you may.
So Ms. Gilman, could we have the first video for January 2nd of entrance? And if you could pause right there, Ms. Gilman. Mr. Roddy, what is it that we're looking at here?
This is the camera. It's a public view monitor. When you walk into the
9:30
building, this is
in the
one you can see
morning.
yourself on.
Now, Mr. Roddy, the date and time at the bottom for Home Goods, are those accurate or are they off in any way?
No, those are accurate.
Ms. Gilman, if you could press play.
Oh, boy. Oh, he's not wearing his green jacket.
Ms. Gilman, could we have the second video register home? And Mr. Roddy, where is this in the store in Norwell?
So that is the front in our queue line. It's another public view monitor as you're walking
Oh,
towards
look
the
at that cute
registers.
Christmas tree she
And when
bought.
you say queue line, so
Pretty
are
tall.
there items for
Oh,
sale
and
in this
her in the,
line?
in the
There are,
cart.
yes.
All right, what do we got? Uh-oh. Oh, I think he's buying candles. Hmm. Ah, so hard. Oh, he's got rugs. I see the rug. Oh, man.
And Ms. Gilman, if you
Oh.
could stop for the record, we're stopping at 1 minute and 16 seconds on the media player. And Ms. Gilman, could you go to the third video, purchase home? Mr. Roddy, where is this in the store?
That is the register. I believe that's register number 8, and it's a camera right above the registers behind them.
You get that big monitor in the way. You can't quite see him. Just makes me sick. And if you don't know why he's buying the candles, one could make the assumption that something stinks. Is the second at 9:30 in the morning. Where are his kids? Oh, are they with the nanny this time? I wonder if they're going to interview the nanny. She can testify as to the demeanor of Mr. Walsh, especially if she was there on the second. Like, did he say, don't go into the basement? Did he make an excuse about the basement? Did he say something about the smell in the basement? I have questions. I just keep asking all these things. I keep asking all these questions. You have questions too. Let me know in the comments what your questions are. What are you thinking? What hasn't the prosecution covered thus far? What did the defense uncover so far that would make you think or believe there's something else going on or something that they might have missed? Questions. All right. Did he pay in cash or did he pay with card? Let us see. Oh, it's hard to tell. It looks like card because he's not. Okay, nope. He's handing her. He's handing her something. Please don't tell me he handed her a discount card and he got a discount. That's even more grossy. Like, I didn't see your cash drawer open, so I assume you play with credit card.
Ms. Gilman, if you could close out of that video
We'll
and bring us to the
proceed.
fourth one.
Hopefully.
And pause if you could. Mr. Roddy, where is this in the Norwell store?
So that is an exit mullion. It's in the vestibule between both sets of doors to go outside.
Ms. Gilman, if you could press play, please.
Don't be criming at the stores.
And Mr. Roddy, what is the time upon exit? If you need to see it again, we could just bring it back up.
Yes, please.
Ms. Gilman, if you could. What is the time upon exit for the record?
9:48 and 2 seconds.
And it's January 2nd.
January 2nd.
Well, we're going to go back because remember he had looked like he had a
What is the
bruise
time?
on his nose.
Is it?
Both sets of doors to go.
Kind of hard. Oops. It's kind of hard to
And
see.
Mr. Roddy, what is the
He
time
had
upon
like
exit?
a bruise on the top
If
of
you
his
need to see it
nose.
again, we could just bring it back up.
Yes, please.
Ms. Gilman, if you could.
Okay.
9:48 and 2 seconds.
And it's January 2nd?
January 2nd.
What? What,
Your Honor,
and
may the Commonwealth approach?
what did he
Okay.
buy and did he pay cash? Because why did he pay cash for like the Lowe's stuff
Mr. Roddy, you
and then
recognize this
the other
document?
stuff he didn't?
I
So
do.
What is this?
This is a receipt for a purchase on January 2nd.
Does Home Goods maintain its receipts in good faith,
It does.
normal course of business?
Yes,
And I take it it's generated at the point that the sale occurs?
correct. Once it's completed.
And this was also turned over to law enforcement January 2023.
It was.
The Commonwealth would seek to have the receipt from January 2nd, this receipt from January 2nd at Home Goods as the next exhibit. Your Honor.
Any objection? The home goods receipt from January the 2nd is now in evidence as 252.
let's see it.
Your Honor, may the Commonwealth publish 252?
You may.
Thank you. Mr. Roddy, I have some questions about 252, Exhibit 252. At the top, it says TGX. Is that generated internally or is that what's given to the customer?
That is internally.
And so the customer would get a Home Goods at the top.
It would say home goods, correct?
In store 280122, is that the Norwell store we were talking about?
Yes, that's the Norwell location.
And now, sir, what does POS 8 mean? POS 8.
That is register number 8, point of sale.
And then cashier, the number, and then there's a name underneath it. What is the significance of that?
The cashier number is the identifier to the associate who's ringing the register.
And sir, are you familiar with the codes with the S underneath them next to the items?
Yes, those are the department numbers.
What is the 35 significant of, S35?
Department 35 is our candle department.
And going further down, what is S75 significant of?
Those are rolled rugs.
What was the total for the sale, sir?
Totals $245.35.
And how was it transacted? Was it cash or charge?
It looks like 2 store value cards were
What
used.
What are store value cards? And I'm sorry, I was interrupting you.
No, those are just, they're cards. They work just like a gift card would work. Same thing.
And if we could scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a date and time.
Yes, January 2nd, 2023, 9:44 and 36 seconds in the AM.
So keeping this up on the redemption area, you had mentioned there are store value cards.
Yes,
So with these store value card numbers, were you able to track down when these cards were issued and where?
yes, we were.
Good question. I want to know. Tell us the answer. Oh, I was like, please tell us the answer.
Mr. Roddy, I'm showing you a document. Do you recognize that?
Yes, it's another receipt.
It's another receipt, but is it from Home Goods in Norwell?
It is not. It's from Marshall's.
And this Marshall's receipt, what does it have to do with the store value cards?
So this looks like a return without a receipt at a Marshall's in Maryland. So when a return is done without a receipt, the customer receives a store value card, store credit.
And on this receipt, does it denote the last 4 digits of the store value card?
It does.
And so, sir, understanding that, do they bear any similarity to the redemption cards used on on this receipt that was done on January 2nd?
Yes, it does. On here, it shows the last 4 is 0256, which matched the purchase receipt.
And as a result of being a member of the TGX umbrella, are you able to get access to the Marshall's receipts to find out which card was issued in corresponding to the redemption that was done on January 2nd?
Yes, we can see each brand.
And this is the card that was issued, that was one of the 2 cards that was issued to do that redemption.
Correct.
The Commonwealth would seek to have this receipt from Marshall's as the next exhibit, Your Honor.
Any objection? The Marshall's receipt. So is there a date on that so I can identify it for the record?
Yes, Your Honor. I apologize. The Marshall's receipt, sir, before I get the date wrong, can you just
It is December 28th, 2022.
Marshall's receipt from December 28th, 2022 is now in evidence as Exhibit 253.
Your Honor, may I publish Exhibit 253, the marshal's receipt from, it's labeled Baltimore receipt.
Wait.
You
Wait. No, that was the 28th. Okay. I was thinking like maybe did he return a Christmas present he bought for her? No, it was on the 28th. So either him or her, because she was still alive at the time, went to Marshall's and returned something. Okay.
may.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Roddy, what's been marked as 253, where is the location of the marshals?
It shows it's in Baltimore, Maryland.
And
Oh,
this is the type
that's
of
a
receipt
return then.
a customer would receive, right? Because it doesn't have the TGX brand at the top.
Correct.
And what is the name of the customer?
Anna Walsh.
And could we scroll all the way down to the bottom? Pause. I'm sorry. So in there, there's issue of merchandise credit. Is that the card that you were speaking of?
It is.
And could we go all the way down to the bottom? And sir, can you tell us what you see as far as a date and time for the receipt?
Yes, it's December 28th, 2022. And the time is 4:30 p.m.
So, sir, that was for one of the two cards ending in 0256. Were you able to find an additional receipt that corresponded to the second card?
Yes.
And before I go any further, did that card end in 4563?
It did.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes?
Sir, do you see this document?
I do.
Is this a TGX receipt that corresponds to the issuance of the card we were just talking about as far as the second redemption card?
It does.
And again, these are kept in the normal course of business and in good faith?
Yes, they are.
The Commonwealth will seek to have this receipt marked as the next exhibit, Your Honor. This would be Washington, D.C. receipt. Can you tell me what type of store this is for? This is a TGX at the top.
This one is TJX. That one I couldn't be positive about.
You can just tell me it's a TGX store, but you can't tell me the brand.
Exactly. Correct.
But could I mark this as the TGX Washington, D.C. receipt, Your Honor?
There's a date on that one?
Mr. Roddy, can you tell us if there's a date on this one?
There is. Also, it's December 28th, 2022.
Any objection? The Washington DC TJX receipt 12/28/22 is in evidence as 254.
Your Honor, may I publish Exhibit 254, the Washington, D.C. receipt?
You may.
Thank you. Mr. Roddy, where is the location of this store that issued the card?
It is Washington, D.C.
And if we could scroll down, Ms. Gilman, how much was the card for? How much was issued as far as a card?
$216.44.
And what are the last four digits of the card?
4563.
And if we could continue to scroll down, where it says returned refund, is there a date as far as what is the December 2nd date that we're looking at opposed to a December 28th date?
The December 2nd date would be the date of the original purchase of the merchandise being refunded.
And so the date at the bottom, December 28th, is when the refund was actually issued.
Correct.
Thank you. You can take that down, Ms. Gilman. Now, sir, you also had the opportunity to review videos from January 4th. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that is also what's already been marked into evidence. And at this point in time, Your Honor, I would seek to publish videos from January 4th, Norwell Home Goods Store.
Is that on the same thumb drive?
Same thumb drive, Your Honor.
251?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may publish it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Gilman, can we have the first video for January 4th?
I can't
And
miss this.
pause, Ms. Gilman. Sir, Mr. Roddy, where is this in the store?
9:57 a.m. it
That
looks
is
like.
the public view monitor again at the entrance.
And looking at the bottom of the image, can you see a date and time?
Again,
Can you tell us what the date and time is?
it is 9:57 a.m. on January 4th, 2023.
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, could we have the second video? Mr. Roddy, what view are we looking at here, sir?
This is another register view right behind the registers.
Is this is this bedding? Oh, well, I see it's a rug. I don't know what the white stuff is. That looks like bathroom rugs. Not bedding, though. Maybe towels?
Thank you, Ms.
Well,
Gilman. Can we go to the
something's
third
happened.
video in that file? Mr. Roddy, what part of the store is this?
That is the exit mullion again in the vestibule between the two doors.
And if you could pause, Ms. Gilman? What is the date and time on the video?
That big
video?
white thing
And
on
for the
his
record,
face.
we're
Can't
at
see.
7 seconds on the media player.
It is 10:07 a.m. on January 4th, 2023.
If you could press play, Ms. Gilman?
It's hard to tell.
Thank you, Ms. Gilman. Mr. Roddy, were you able to produce a receipt for this transaction?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Dude.
This receipt also maintained the same way that the other Norwell Home Goods receipt is maintained.
Yes.
And does this receipt correspond to the transaction for that video?
It does.
And what is the date on this receipt?
January 4th, 2023.
And at the top, this says TZX. So is that an internally produced receipt opposed to what a customer would see?
It is.
The Commonwealth would seek to have this as the next exhibit, Your Honor, January 4th receipt from Norwell Home Goods.
Any objection? The receipt from 1/4/23 from the Norwell Home Goods is now in evidence as 255.
Your Honor, if I may publish 255, the January 4th receipt.
You may.
Thank you.
What'd you get?
Mr. Roddy, Mr. Roddy, I have similar questions. Going down the receipt to the body of the goods purchased, what is the significance of 36?
36 is our towel department.
And what is the significance of 68?
68
towels.
is our bath mats or bath rugs.
And going down to the bottom of the receipt, sir, how is this transaction negotiated?
There, it looks like there was 2 SVCs, 2 credits used.
And was one of them the 4563 that you previously testified about?
It is.
And going down to the bottom of the, is there a date and time on the receipt?
There is January 4th, 2023 at 10:05 a.m.
And you said there was a second SVC card.
There
Were you
was.
able to find the receipt or the transaction for that in the TGX systems that issued that second card ending in 4481?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Thank you. Mr. Roddy, do you recognize this receipt?
I do.
Is this from a Marshall store?
It is.
And does this receipt show the issuance of the card that you just mentioned, the second card used to transact the sale?
Yes, it does.
And what was the date that this transaction occurred that issued the card?
It was December 8th, 2022.
And where was the store, where was the Marshalls located?
Hingham, Mass.
The Commonwealth would seek to have the Hingham Marshall December, what was the date again, sir?
12/8/22. Any objection? The 12/8/22 Marshall's receipt is in evidence as 256.
Your Honor, may I publish 256?
You may.
Thank you. Sir, looking at this, what is the address for the Marshalls?
400 Lincoln Street in Hingham, Massachusetts.
And the initial transaction date is what, sir?
The original was December 2nd, 2022.
And going down, sir, what is the first, understanding this is not your store, so you don't know 23s next to the item. What is the description of the item that was purchased?
Men's Best Brand,
And then the second item that was purchased?
children's toys.
Now, sir, going down if we could. Amount due to customer is what, sir?
$155.91.
And there is a merchandise credit number ending in what, sir?
4481.
And going down, sir, going down, Ms. Gilman, all the way to the bottom, the date for it is what, sir?
December 8th, 2022.
Okay, December 8th. I'm sorry, I might have heard you as December 28th, my bad. Now, sir, on this receipt, is there a name for the customer?
If we
I didn't
go.
see one.
So on this one, it is a return with receipt where we don't need ID to process those.
So there's no customer name at the top like there was in the prior ones?
There is not.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Okay. My mind goes to dark places. Yours does too. That's why we're friends, right? Anna did 2 of the returns. One was on December 28th. In Washington, D.C. Well, one was on the 28th. She wasn't home yet. So, it was on the 28th, but it said her name on it. Huh. Anyways, did she have did she have these cards in her possession and he took them from her? Just saying. Just saying.
Cross?
Yes, thank you, Judge.
Oh,
Go right
cross.
ahead.
Here we go.
Regarding these cards, the last couple of cards you just told the jury about. So am I right to just say that, or to suggest that there was some purchases made in or around the Maryland, DC area at some point in December?
Yes, I'd have to see it again. I'm not sure if it was a purchase or a return.
Okay, purchase or return. There was a transaction.
Yes.
And then whoever transacted that transaction, that's not a very good way to put it, whoever did that, they eventually got some store credit that was applied to that card, right?
Correct.
And then they walk out of the store with that card, right?
Correct.
And then that card, of course, finds its way down to Massachusetts, and that card is eventually used in Massachusetts sometime around January of 2023, correct?
Correct.
Nothing unusual about that if a family is trading cards back and forth, correct?
Correct.
Did the
If-
Commonwealth, the state of Massachusetts here, did they ever ask you to try to get video of those transactions that occurred in December, for instance, from those Washington area?
From myself, it wasn't home goods, so not from myself. If it was from a Marshalls or TJ's district loss prevention manager, I'm unsure.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
The witness may step down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Are they? Oh, she's getting up.
We're going to suspend there for today. I thank you for your work today. I bring you some updates with regards to the schedule.
All right. It is the end of day 7 for the Brian Walshe trial. What did we learn today? Well, there's a lot of things going on DNA, forensic wise. Got all that evidence that came in from the trash, evidence collected at the home. They've all been analyzed. Anna's DNA has been found on pretty much everything. It's just 1 or 2 things that it hasn't. And then we had another retail store, Home Goods, where he bought some rugs and candles and some bath mats and some towels. So, all right, if you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe and tell your friends so I can keep on doing this. If not, we'll see. Anyways, thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching Legalese 123. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe for more content.